Welcome to the Seeton Cyber Security Team. Today we will tell you about API vulnerabilities. You will learn about most high-profile API attacks of 2021 that exposed more than 5 million users. We will introduce you the OWASP API Security Top 10 and demonstrate an exploit option for one of the most commonly used vulnerabilities. If you want to ensure the security of critical data, stay with us. We will help you with this. API may contain the following threats. Denial of service attacks flood an API endpoint with traffic, disrupting the service. Those attacks can degrade the quality of service for API users, cause significant response delays, and ultimately lead to downtime. Injection. In an injection attack, malicious code is embedded into vulnerable software to orchestrate the attack, including SQL injection and cross-site scripting. In this way, an attacker can gain unauthorized access to information. Broken authentication attacks aim to take over one or more accounts, giving the attackers the same privileges as the attacked user. Authentication is broken when attacker can crack passwords, session keys or tokens, user account information, and other details to identify the user. A man-in-the-middle attack is a type of cyber attack in which attackers intercept an existing communication or data transmission by impersonating a legitimate participant. There are two main types of API architectures: REST and SOAP. These architectures differ not only in complexity of writing or scope, but also in ensuring security during their creation. The SOAP architecture is based on W3C and OASIS recommendations, including SAML tokens, encryption, and XML signatures. Supports web services specifications, which enable security extensions that provide enterprise-grade security for web services. And supports WS Reliable Messaging, which provides built-in errors handling. REST API do not have any built-in security features or built-in error handling. It requires data to be resent when error occurs. And this is why security depends only on the experience of the developer and the correctly built-in structure of API. During 2021, there were 7 high-profile API breaches that exposed more than 500 million users and 70 terabytes of data. The first high-profile incident of that year was the Parler API breach. Parler is a social network from which it was possible to download 70 terabytes of data, which included profile data, user information, as well as million photos and videos. The next incident happened in March, and it is called Microsoft Exchange API breach. It caused the data leak of more than 3 million users. Experian API breach was implemented by researcher Bill Demenbury, who studied API vulnerabilities. The vulnerability was that the application didn't require the correct information to be entered, but instead displayed any information as requested. Several bugs in John Deere's app and website allowed hackers to find and download the personal data of all owners of companies' farm vehicles and equipment. Jan Masters, a security researcher at PetTest Partners, discovered that he was able to send unauthenticated requests to Peloton internal API, which were used by related exercise equipment and subscription services. The next incident led to leakage of personal data of 700 million users and was called the LinkedIn API breach. All these incidents have one thing in common. To implement all of them, an API vulnerability called Broken Object Level Authorization was used. The Open Web Application Security Project, shortly OWASP, is a non-profit online community behind the OWASP Top 10. They create articles, methodologies, documentation, tools and technologies to improve application security. In 2019, OWASP launched a separate project dedicated exclusively to API security. The OWASP API Security Top 10 project focuses specifically on the top 10 API security vulnerabilities. Broken Object Level Authorization is the most frequently used vulnerability according to the OWASP Top 10 security statistics, and now we will look at one way to exploit it. Object Level Authorization is an access control mechanism for verifying that a user can only perform actions on objects to which they have access. Failures in this mechanism led to unauthorized access to information, modification, or even its destruction. To minimize the likelihood of exploiting this vulnerability, it is necessary to implement object-level authorization checks for each API endpoint. An API endpoint is a digital location where the API receives requests for a specific object. In other words, it is a URL that provides the location of the resource on the server. For example, there is a database that contains a list of book publications where books are the objects. While inspecting browser requests, an attacker was able to identify a pattern of API endpoints. When sorting identifiers due to the lack of an authorization mechanism, it is possible to obtain from this database such properties of the objects like author, first sentence, ID of the book, title, and year published. In order to protect APIs from potential vulnerabilities, solutions were developed that Gartner classifies as web application and API protection. Solutions include the following functions. DDoS protection blocks any malicious attempts to affect the availability of target system such as website or application. WAF helps protect web applications by filtering and monitoring HTTP traffic between the application and the internet. Bot mitigation isolates and stops malicious bot attacks while allowing safe bot traffic to reach the application. API protection focuses on strategies and solutions to understand and mitigate the unique vulnerabilities and security risks of application programming interfaces. Next, we will talk in more detail about the benefits of API security. Among the advantages of web application and API protection solutions, we can highlight the following: automatic detection and profiling of all APIs, API lifecycle management, protection against such attacks as cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, SQL injection, DOS attacks at application level, and mitigation of bad bots. API checks for compliance with API schemas, control for API endpoints based on API key, inspection of XML and JSON queries to detect and report on attacks in real time, definition of allowed API requests by key, create custom API validation rules to meet specific user requirements. So, how web application and API security solutions work? There is a single console that includes 4 models. Discover. These models allow you to discover and monitor all your APIs. The Protect model. It covers protection against possible threats, among which includes not only the OWASP Top 10 security list, but also protection against malicious bots, DOS attacks on the application layer of OCI model. The Respond model. It allows you to optimize incident response with full visibility and active scanning for threats. Test model. It provides an opportunity to automate security testing for your APIs. This console collects information about your APIs, applications, microservices, processes, and it sends it to CM systems, corporate messengers, additional resources for working with APIs. Thank you for your attention. Don't forget to subscribe and like our channel. With us, you will learn more about information security technologies. Seeton Cyber Security Team is always available. Follow our updates and ask for consultations. Materials were prepared by cybersecurity engineers Kostromina Maria and Parfenuk Tetiana.